Hi everyone, today we're going to work on Gold Math Lesson 2.8, which asks us to use mental math and properties to help us multiply numbers. Now when we use mental math, that's when we try to do the math problem in our head without pencil, paper, or calculator. Do you remember ever doing that before? That's what we're going to practice to do today. And the properties are different strategies that help us use multiplication and make problems easier for us. So let's quickly review them. The first property we have is the commutative property, and this property tells us that we can multiply factors in any order and the products remain the same. So if we had 4 groups of 6, that would equal 24, and 6 groups of 4 also equals 24. Same factors, 4 and 6, and it doesn't matter which order they are in. The next property we're going to talk about is the associative property. Now this property comes into play when you have 3 or more factors that are multiplied together. The product will stay the same regardless, no matter of whatever order the factors are in. So here we have the same 3 factors, 6, 3, and 2. But in the first one, they're grouping the 6 and 3 together, and in the bottom, they're grouping the 3 and the 2 together. Remember, when equation is placed inside of parentheses, it means solve me first. So this one is saying 6 groups of 3 is 18, and 18 groups of 2 would equal 36. Now, I don't really know 18 as well, so that was a little tricky for me. So if I look down here, again, same factors, but this time, instead of grouping the 6 and the 3 together, I'm grouping the 3 and the 2 together. Now I know 3 groups of 2 is 6, and now I have 6 groups of 6. That's so easy for me. I know 6 groups of 6 is 36 because I know my 6 table really well. So here, the associative property helps you by grouping easier problems together. And the third property we're talking about is the distributive property. This one tells us that multiplication facts can be decomposed or broken up into the sum of 2 smaller facts. And they give us the problem of 9 groups of 3. Here I'm taking the 9, and instead of doing 9, because maybe I don't know my 9 table so well, I'm doing 6 and 3 instead. And I'm going to multiply both of those by 3, so 6 groups of 3 and 3 groups of 3, and then I'm going to add that together. So looking at our math workbook page, we see our essential question is how can you use mental math and properties to help you multiply numbers? And it's letting us know that properties of multiplication can make multiplication easier. That's the purpose of them. They're supposed to help us. So here we see the problem. There are 4 sections of seats in the Playhouse Theater. Each section has 7 groups of seats, and each group has 25 seats. How many seats are there in the theater? Well, this problem is really asking us to solve 4 groups of 7 times 25. Oh, and when you see an equation like this in a row, and there's no parentheses, you just need to solve it as you go. So here it would be 4 times 7, or 4 groups of 7, and I know 4 groups of 7 is 28. And then I would have to do 28 groups of 25, or 28 times 25. Ooh. This is definitely not a problem I could easily solve just inside my head. A pen and paper would really help me out here. And the whole purpose of this lesson is not to use a pen and paper. So let's think about it. This is kind of tough to solve. Is there something I can do to make it easier? Well, I know 28 times 25 is hard, but looking at these problems, if I switch the order, I actually think I could find an easier problem. Because if I did 4 groups of 25, 4 times 25. Now thinking about it, 4 times 25 is kind of like 4 quarters, right? Because the quarters each 25 cents. And if I put my 4 quarters together, instead of 25 cents plus 25 cents plus 25 cents plus 25 cents, I get $1 or 100 cents. So I know that 4 groups of 25 is 100, right? And that's kind of easy for me. So if I switch the order, instead of doing 4 times 7 times 25, if I did 4 times 25 times 7, I'm using my commutative property. And that makes it easier for me because I know that 4 groups of 25 is 100. So now I could do 4 groups of 25 is 100 and multiply the 100 times 7. So I have 100 groups of 7, which is 700. So altogether, I would have 700 seats in the theater. This is a quick example of how the commutative property, switching the order of the factors, can help you solve harder problems. Now we're going to look at the associative property and how that helps us solve it. Remember, the associative problem is when you have the factors, 3 factors, and the way they are grouped may be a little tough for you, so you switch the grouping. Here, they want me to find 6 groups of 10, and whatever that answer is, times 10. Well, 6 groups of 10 is kind of easier for me. But you know what's even easier? 10 groups of 10. So if I take the same 3 digits, but this time I group it differently. Instead of doing 6 groups of 10, I do 10 groups of 10. I'm doing my associative property. And that's easier for me because I know that 10 groups of 10 is 100. And now, after I solve what's in the parentheses, I could solve the rest. 6 groups of 100 is 600. So that's how the associative property helps me. It's just by switching the order in which I multiply problems. Now, let's look at this one. This is asking me to find 4 groups of 9 times 250. Ooh, that's kind of tough. Because if I do it this way, I would have to do 4, whatever's in the parentheses, solve me first. So 4 groups of 9 would be 36, and 36 times 250. Wow, pretty tough. So if I look here, again, I'm going to say 4 groups of 9 is 25. But instead, I'm going to do this. I'm going to switch the order of my factors. I'm going to do 25 times 4 times 9. So I switched the order. Instead of my group of 4 times 9 first, I moved it to the back and I put my 250 first. That's using the commutative property. Now, I'm going to use the associative property, and I'm going to switch my grouping. Instead of grouping the 4 and the 9 together, I'm going to group my 4 and 250 together. Because I know 4 times 25 is a basic fact. We already said it. 4 times 25 is 100. And if I have a 0 at the end, all I have to do is add it. So 4 times 25 is 100. 4 times 250 is going to be 1,000. And now I could do 1,000 times 9 is 9,000. Looking at this first problem seems so difficult, but by using the commutative property and switching my order of the factors, and then using the associative property, switching the grouping of the factors, helped me easily solve this problem inside my head. I didn't need any pen or paper at all. Here we're going to look at some more strategies we could use to help us solve these problems. The first one is using friendly numbers. Here it's asking us to multiply 24 groups of 250. Again, definitely want a pen and paper to solve this. But if I think inside my head that 24 really is 6 groups of 4, that helps me because I know that 4 groups of 250 is 1,000. So instead of doing 24 times 250, I'm going to do 6 times 4. That's where I got my 24. I'm going to break it up into 6 and 4, and I'm going to multiply that by 250. And again, now I'm going to use my associative property. I'm going to multiply 4 times 250, which I know is 1,000, because 4 times 25 is 100. And now I'm going to solve 6 times 1,000 is 6,000. And that's how I use friendly numbers. I take one of my factors and I break them up into easier factors and write a new problem. We could also use halving and doubling. When you halve something, you divide it by 2. And when you double it, you multiply it by 2. I don't really know my 16 times table that well, so 16 groups of 50 would be tough for me. So I'm going to halve 16. I'm going to divide 16 evenly by 2. And I know 16 divided by 2 equals 8. So now that I know that, now I'm going to multiply it by half. And I'm going to break it up. I'm going to do 8 times 50. And again, basic fact, 8 times 50, 8 times 5 is 40. and then I add my 0. Now, again, I took my 16 and I only did partial of it. I did 8 of it. So now I have to do the 2 of it. And I'm going to take that answer and multiply that by 2. 2 times 400 is 800. And there I see that 16 groups of 50 is 800. And I did that by first halving it and then doubling it. So first I took one of my factors and I divided it by 2. Then I took that product and doubled it or multiplied it by 2. Another strategy you could do is use addition. If you were asked to multiply 4 groups of 625, well, that's kind of tough for me. But I think to myself, 625 is 600 plus 25. So let's see, 4 groups of 625 is 4 groups of 600 plus 25. Again, I'm back to my distributive property. I'm going to break it up and I'm going to multiply first 4 times 600, which think of your basic fact. 4 times 6 is 24. Add your 2 zeros. And then I'm going to do 4 times 25. And we've been talking about this one. I know that right away is 100. These are my partial products. And once I add them up, I get the product of 4 groups of 625. That's using addition. And that is really the distributive property. And now we're going to look about using subtraction, which is also using the distributive property. Here I'm going to do 5 groups of 398, another tough one. Well, I know that 398 is 2 less than 400. So instead of doing 5 groups of 398, I'm going to do 5 groups of 400 minus 2. And I know that 5 groups of 400, 5 times 4 is 20. Then I add my 2 zeros. And I'm going to now do my next part, distributive property, 5 groups of 2. 5 groups of 2 is 10. And the last step is to subtract them. 2,000 minus 10 is 1,990. So 5 groups of 398 is 1,990. And lastly, what property is being used in example C and D? Well, we said it together. That's the distributive property. Okay, boys and girls, we're going to keep working on this. Good job.